Hello everybody and welcome to Wesley's Plant World with me, Wesley Peterson. And today we are out in the area of my garden I call the inner garden. And I've been out today and I have trimmed the whole of the grass area in front of me because it's full of the plant we're going to be talking about today. And I need to get this sorted out. Now the plant I'm going to be talking about today is commonly known as a weed, and a weed that grows almost anywhere and very often in your borders where you don't want it to be. Well, that is if you're trying to keep a neat, tidy garden and you want space for your perennials to be able to come up, because these plants can start out small, but they can get very big with time, and they can spread out their leaves quite far, and they can take the light from germinating plants and seeds and all sorts that's going on in the border, and just perennials that are trying to come out of the ground. These plants that I'm going to be talking about today, the plants that have a gorgeous yellow flower, are called Taraxacum officinale. They are commonly known as the dandelion. And well, most of us have experienced dandelions in our gardens at some point or other. And I can tell you, my garden is full of hundreds and hundreds if not thousands of dandelions, because the field in front of me here, which I will show you later in the video, is absolutely full of thousands of dandelions, and all their seeds blow over into my garden every single season and spread everywhere. But you know what? I'm living in my country garden where I don't worry about those kind of things very much. All I want to do is tidy them up in my perennial borders to give my perennials a chance to grow up so that the dandelions don't take over. But in the grass, for example, in front of me, I don't care. I don't do anything. I just mow my lawn like I always mow the lawn, and they get chopped down with that, and they will still come up, and they will come up, but at the same time, they get chopped down with the grass. So it doesn't make any difference to me. I have a wild lawn. It's full of wild plants. I love it. I don't mind it. And I actually love the dandelions because they're good for the biodiversity. They're good for the wild bees that are out and about foraging early in the spring season, and the beetles and the flies and all sorts of other things that are going on. So they're a really good early season crop for those insects, and they're also there for animals that eat plants, such as rabbits and things like that, if you have those kind of things in your wild garden as well. So for me, it's absolutely fine, except keeping them managed in the borders. Now, at the moment, I'm showing you when I finished tidying up my inner garden here. As I said, I've already trimmed the whole of the grass here. I've trimmed the edge of the border so that you can see the outline, and I've taken all of the dandelions out of the borders next to me and behind me here. So we're going to go back in time in a moment so that you can see me working on this, and you can see the grass when it was a little bit longer, to see how it was before I got it looking a little bit more tidy as it is now. And I'm quite pleased with the result, because now I can see what's actually going on. And I have all sorts, from my different ferns coming up, my hostas coming up, my geraniums coming up, I have ice plants coming up, I have all sorts of different things coming up. And I have red valerian coming up, everything. So I really am pleased that I can see all of those plants coming out much better now. And it's not going to be much longer before the ferns and the hostas really fill out the spaces in between here, so this becomes a lovely green mountain border behind me here. And even my perennial bushes that I planted last year, I did a whole video, one video where I created this border, and then I did another video where I planted out a lot of different types of perennial plants, and you can go back and see those videos so you can understand how this border has been growing out with time. But anyway, back to the plant of the day. This Taraxacum officinale, it's a herbaceous perennial plant that produces yellow flowers. So down here I have one in my grass. I have a yellow flower. I will show you them closer up on the screen. And these flowers have a kind of flat platform, which is absolutely perfect for insects, flying insects, to land on. So they love to come and land on these plants and collect the pollen and nectar, and then they're on their way. So they're perfect for the biodiversity. Another fantastic thing about the plant is it has a taproot that can go quite deep down into the soil, and that taproot draws up the nutrients that are lower down in the soil layers up to the surface so that the plants around and about can actually access those nutrients. So it's really good to get in and get yourself a tool like I have here, a weeding tool. Get down, break off those roots, bring up the whole plant. Then you can take off the flower buds and disperse of those, or use them as I am to make tea or tincture later. And then break up the leaves and throw the leaves back onto the top of the soil, because that will go back into the soil as it's broken down and become nutrients for the plant, so you don't waste anything that way. The root you can take up, and as I've done here, I have a pile here, you can use that as a root vegetable in your meals, or you can use it by drying it out in your oven and then grounding it down and making it into what would taste like a decaffeinated coffee. So that's what I'm going to be doing, because I'm allergic to caffeine. So for me, it's absolutely perfect for that. So at the same time as weeding my borders, I'm actually using this plant as a crop, so that I am getting a double benefit out of it. So I know the biodiversity is getting something out of it, I know my plants are getting something out of it, and I am getting something out of it as well. So it's absolutely fantastic. So the flowers, when they start producing their seeds, they turn into these white puffy balls that are called clocks, and they are full of small fruits that disperse in the wind. The slightest gust of wind, they blow away everywhere and spread all over the place. That is why this plant is a survivor. It can get everywhere. Now this plant is actually in the same family as the daisies, and that is the Asteraceae family. Now one of the things that makes this plant such a dominant plant in the garden is that it can grow in virtually any kind of soil type. It does prefer moist soil, and then it will grow fast and vigorously, but it can also cope with dry situations and sandy and gritty and whatever. It will grow most places as long as it can get its taproot down. It doesn't mind crowding out, so it can be in a situation where there are lots of other plants and it will just bully its way up and it will spread out its leaves and take over. And the more it's crowded, the higher it grows. And this plant can get to around 40 centimeters tall with its flower stalks and so forth, and its leaves as well. So they can be small plants and they can get very, very big. And I will show you that later in this video as well. They can take all sorts of temperatures, from very cold temperatures to warm temperatures and so forth. They go dormant, of course, during the winter time, and they flower from early spring to first frost. So they are just going on all summer long, beneficial for everything. The taproot isn't affected by cold temperatures, and here in our garden we get down to around minus 16 degrees, doesn't do anything to this plant. It will just pop up as soon as the temperature starts rising again the next season. This plant contains a substance called Taraxacum, which is found in the latex of the plant, which is the white milky stuff that comes out of the flower stalks and the leaves and everything else. That is all beneficial for you, so it's not poisonous in any way. You would think something that sounds like latex is not good to eat, but this is very good for you. So Taraxacum officinale was actually imported to the Americas many, many years ago as a food crop, because it has many medicinal purposes. And well, they wanted this plant as a crop, but it wasn't a very good idea, because now it's become an invasive species, of course, in North America, South America. It's spread even down to South Africa. It's found in New Zealand, Australia, India, everywhere. It's spread everywhere. So it's not native to America, but well, you've probably seen it everywhere there as well. So even though this plant grows in temperate zones, it's often found growing along roadways, in grassy fields, or along waterways, or anywhere where it's kind of moist for the most part, and then it will just establish itself and carry on. I'm going to show you this plant in the field in front of me, because well, they just look beautiful in a nice yellow hive of colour. So this plant is a really good indicator plant of how your soil is, because it's a plant that likes high quantities of potassium but low quantities of calcium. So if you have a lot like I have here, well, I know that the soil around here is full of potassium and has lower amounts of calcium. These seeds of this plant make it a pioneering plant, because they can stay in the seed bank in the soil for 9, 10, or even more years. So once they're there, and as long as they manage to stay around the first 2 centimeters at the top of the soil, then at some point, if they get disturbed or move to the top, they will germinate up to 10 years or more after landing somewhere on the soil. And these seeds can be dispersed several hundred meters away from where the mother plant was. That is kilometers and kilometers away. Another thing about this plant is that it grows where there are elevated levels of carbon dioxide. And where I live in Sweden, we have a lot of trees and a lot of forest and so forth. So of course there's a lot of carbon dioxide in this area. And well, these plants seem to be thriving here wherever there is any grassland area that they can reproduce in. And it is said that, you know, each year as the carbon dioxide levels in the atmosphere increase and increase due to us cutting down all the rainforests and all of the jungles and forest areas of this world, it's said that this plant is going to spread so much more around the world because it loves high carbon dioxide. I just want to throw in here something that I think is quite interesting. The flowers of this plant are often used in different areas around the world to make dandelion wine. Now, I have never tried that, and now I'm going to be on the lookout to try and see if I can find a dandelion wine to see what it tastes like. This plant can also be used to make dandelion flower jam. Did you know that? I've never seen dandelion flower jam. I'd love to try it. In fact, I'm going to have to make it myself. And in many parts of Poland and different places around the world, they're actually used to make a honey substitute kind of syrup, which is known as May honey. Doesn't that sound tantalizing? I should never look at dandelions the same again because there are so many fantastic practical uses for this plant, and it really is a plant that can be used as a remedy for so many different ailments. It's unbelievable. And if you want to know more, just look up about this plant online. You can look at articles, you can look at books, you can look at YouTube videos, you can find information all over the place about this wonderful plant and really get to know it, because if you have it growing in your garden, use it as a crop. Don't just cut and throw away. Because of the high amount of potassium in this plant, it's well known as a diuretic. And the leaves of the dandelion have been used by the Chinese for more than 2,000 years as a diuretic by using the leaves as a kind of tea. Isn't that just fantastic and amazing? So other uses for this plant, as well as being able to consume the plant, is that the latex in the plant can be turned into a kind of glue, making me think it's unbelievable that we can eat a plant that is full of latex that can be made into a glue. But this is not bad for you, this is healthy. And the yellow colour in the flowers can be made into a dye. But the roots, the colour in the roots and the leaves can't be used so well as a dye, but the yellow, the striking yellow flower can be made into a dye. Fantastic. So getting back to the soil that dandelions prefer, this is also another indicator of what kind of soil you have. Dandelions, they actually prefer a slightly more acidic soil to neutral soil. So again, another indicator. So for me here, I know in this foresty area, it's full of leaves, it's full of greenery and all sorts. So I have a slightly more acidic soil, I have a soil that's high in potassium, and I have a soil that's low in calcium. So lots of information is coming to me just by the fact that I can see I have a lot of Taraxacum officinale in my garden. So there is actually quite a lot of symbolism attached to the dandelion as well, and that is because this is such a resilient plant. When you look at the flower, it's said that this flower reminds us of the sun. And also when you see a dandelion growing up and stretching up towards the sky, the rejuvenation of life and the expectancy of wanting to carry on in happiness, love and joy. Another thing about this plant, and this is something that I grew up with, is that when the seed clock grows out and you blow the seed into the air, you're sending off your wish of something that you'd like to happen in your life, something positive and good. And we used to do that an awful lot as a child, and it was so fantastic to blow off the seed heads of a dandelion. Now, very often This plant is thought of as being one species, Taraxacum officinale. But there are in fact many, many different species of this plant, well over 100 different species and varieties and so forth. And they have different shaped leaves. Some are long, some are rounded lobes, some are jaggedy, some have small leaves, but they all have the typical yellow flowers. They can have different shapes and forms as well. So the plants come in many, many shapes and forms, and I couldn't even start to go around and look and name all of the different species in my garden, but I've seen different plants with different leaves and shapes and flowers, telling me that there are different species in the area where I live. But within one species, there could be so many different unique forms of the same plant that it's very difficult to see if what you're looking at is a completely different species or just a variant of the same plant. Did you know that the name dandelion comes from the French Dandelion, the lion's tooth? And that pertains to the dandelion's jagged shaped leaves. Well, anyway, I've gone on about this plant quite a lot right now. So now I want to take you back in time and give you a closer look of my border before I finished it today and the grass area in front. And you can see me working on the area a little bit here. And I will explain some things as I go along. And then we will come back to now and I will show you a close-up again of my finished border for the day. And I can't wait now for this border to fill out with all the perennials after all this hard work and the lovely food and drinks that I'm going to be making later. Let's go back in time now. So let's go into the inner garden where the grass is completely filled up with these dandelions. And seeing as it's a cloudy day with drizzling rain, they've all closed up their flowers, but they are here. Look at this, a huge mass everywhere. The border that I want to take them out of is over here because I have so many beautiful perennials coming up. So I don't want all the dandelions taking over. Here you are. You can see lots and lots, and they're pretty tall and pretty thick in amongst my geraniums down here. So I want to take all of these out of this border. Growing up next to my hosta, they're coming out in the middle there, all over this border. So the job of the day is just to get the dandelions out to make space for my perennial plants. Past the bench, they're even growing up into the bench. Here. And down here in the corner. And in amongst everything else over here. Lots and lots. Look at this. So those, as well as the grass that's growing up in here, which is an awful species, a weed that spreads like mad, need to be taken out. But in the grass, they will just be mown down with the rest of the grass and become a natural fertilizer for, well, the grass and the other wild plants in the lawn. So there they're fine, but here they have to go. So let me get on with this. So to be able to make a kind of decaffeinated coffee, which it's not really, it has the flavour of it, well, that's perfect for me. And I can also use the roots in my meals. So I might cook some of them up and use them together with whatever else I'm going to make. So this is perfect. I'm not going to waste these plants. A lot of the leaves I will be leaving on the surface of the soil because they have all of the basic nutrients that these plants need, as well as the micro and macro metals and all sorts of things that will be broken back down and replenish the soil here. So I'll take some of the young fresh ones and I'll leave the bigger leaves here to do their job in the soil. But to be able to do this, I need to go and get my dandelion weed puller tool that will be able to get deep down in the soil and break that root so that I can get as much of the plant up as possible to stop it regenerating itself and growing out again. So if you don't know what a weed puller tool is, this is it. A stick, basically, a metal stick with a forked end that you can really get down in the soil and break off the root of things like dandelions that have a pole root normally. This one has a soft rubber handle around the wooden handle. You can find them in lots of different varieties, and you can even get them in expert varieties with all sorts of mechanical things on them. But this is the basic tool you need to get them up. So I'll get one of my dandelions up and I'll show you exactly what I mean about the root. Oh, and I also have a rubber knee pad because you're going to be on your knees a lot and it will hurt if you don't have a knee pad. So, oh, another thing I need is my gloves because this is going to get messy. Right, gloves are on. And I am ready to get into action. This has got to be a good, I would say, 50 centimeters tall actually. Look at that compared to my body, right up to my face, my whole body length. So it is a huge, tall plant. And this one has long, exaggerated leaves. In this example, they're long and thin, as you can see here. And then look at the stalks on the flowers, they're just enormous. And then, of course, the dandelion buds and the flowers you see here, which are closed, which are just about to emerge on this plant. So that is a huge example. And then I only have a little bit of the root that I managed to get up this time. There you go. There's the root that I can use to make myself a lovely meal or a nice cup of what would taste like decaffeinated coffee. And every single part of these plants is edible, beneficial, good for you. I just don't understand why this plant is not being produced more in the shops. Probably because it's too good for you. You can eat the leaves, stems, everything. So I am going to do what I always do with these plants. What I do is I break off the flowers. And that part I'll put in my jar. I'll just take the buds off and put those parts in my jar. And then I break off the rest of the leaves from the root. And this I will be putting on my tray over there. And I will wash them up and use them as I just said I will. And I will take some of the young fresh leaves. Now these are longer, bigger leaves and they're probably going to be a lot more bitter than the younger leaves. So these ones I will just break up into smaller pieces and spread back round onto the soil so that they give the benefit back to my perennial plants that are coming up. So nothing, as I said, will be wasted. So there's my first root on my tray. And I can pick off the flower buds and put them, oh, I just dropped this on the floor, in my jar, like that. I'll keep dropping them on the floor. What's going on here? Put them in my jar, and I will clean and tidy up everything later. Closed buds, open buds, doesn't matter. The rest, throw back on the soil. These rip up and throw onto your soil because this is so beneficial for your plants, and it's not anything that is going to rejuvenate itself into a new plant. So that is the goal of this job today. Out here, and it's going to take me some time because I have a lot of dandelions to get through. Get your weeding tool and get down into that soil and just try and rip up as much as you can. And again, older leaves, rip up, place back on the soil like that. Flower heads, take off, put in my jar, and root save to put on my tray. So this is going to take me quite a while, so I will get on with this in fast forward. Oh, you guys, I just want to show you, look at the size of the root on this plant. Now, again, a plant that is around 30-40 centimeters tall just from the base before the root. But look at this amazing root full of goodness. Oh, I shall enjoy eating that. And then all the leaves and the flowers. And you can see I haven't got the whole of the root. Now there's a good 10 centimeters on this root, and it's probably 20-30 centimeters deep. So you can see they're hard to cap off. But what an amazing source of energy for both me and my garden. And I am really enjoying collecting all this, even though it's taking some time. I haven't got many leaves at the moment because I'm only saving the absolutely small, good looking fresh leaves. They will taste the best. You can eat everything else, just smaller amount because it will be more and more bitter the bigger they get. But I'm mostly concentrating on putting as much of this goodness back on my border as possible. I need to get into the back of my border here because I have some big examples of these dandelions coming up. Oh, but I've got to be careful because I have so many perennials coming up here that I don't want to ruin. So finally I can sit here on my bench. I'm finished clearing out a lot of all of these dandelions from my perennial border here, and I've left a lot of the leaves round and about all over this border, and it's going to be mixed in with the soil as the microbiodiversity gnaw it down and chew it down and break it down, and it goes through their body systems and out and becomes a nutrient concoction that the plants will be able to take up and use and help to better them and make them more healthy as well. So of course all the worms and the beetles and the wood lice and the centipedes and millipedes and snails and slugs and everything else that's going on in this border are working together to create that perfect symbiosis that goes on in a garden border. And that is why it's so important that you don't just go and take everything away. So many people do this and it's just not a good idea. You shouldn't go and take all your dandelions up and then just throw the whole lot away. No, leave the leaves, let them do their magic. You need the nitrogen and you need the carbon, and I don't kill snails and slugs anymore because there are so many that what's the point? That survives, survives. That doesn't. Plant-wise, they're there for a purpose. And I still get to see plenty of fine things as the season progresses. Now, in front of me, I have 3 different containers here with what I have collected. And I'm going to take you in for a closer look at the border and these things that I'm going to go in and make as something that I can eat and drink. So I get something beneficial out of this as well. I've actually used my dandelions as a crop. And that's another thing you should do as well, so that you're not wasting anything at all. Both the border and me are going to get so much out of this. So let's go in for a closer look. And remember, I've left everything lying around on the top. My borders don't look neat and tidy because for me, the most important thing is that my plants get the nutrients back into the soil. I'm not one of these people that likes a clean, perfect topsoil with just my perennials because it just doesn't look that natural. I like this rough and ready look. As long as it's in the border, you can see the border. I have these lovely recycled logs of wood when I cut down the trees in my west side garden, and I did a video where I showed you that. So I have this expanse that I can enjoy, and I can see the edging of the border. It's been lifted up because these logs are a little bit higher, so that is absolutely perfect. So now let me take you in for the closer look of all of this, and at the same time I want to show you the horses that have just been put out in my neighbour's field in front of me here, because they're just gorgeous. Let's go. So here we go, back into the inner garden, and you can see I have trimmed the whole area, and here is the border without lots and lots and lots of dandelions in it, so that all my perennials can start coming up. But as you can see, I've left all the leaves, so it could be confusing for you. You might think that those are dandelions that are left, but they're not. So I have lots of different things coming up in all of the spaces that have now been excavated out. Lots of different perennial plants that are going to love the nutrients that they've been given from these so-called weedy wild plants. So all the way down to here. There we go. And now let's have a look at what I am going to be making into nice food and drinks for me. So here we go, the weeding tool that I used. I have the dandelion leaves to make a nice salad, mix in with whatever else I have. And I have all of these roots to make a lovely decaffeinated tasting coffee. And also maybe I will put some of these in my chili con carne that I'm making for dinner tonight. Why not? And then in my jar that I need to open again, I have all the flower heads that I am going to be making into tea, or adding to my salad, or adding to my meals, whatever. Because everything on this plant can be used and savoured. Yum yum. What a fantastic crop. So I just wanted to show you the field in front of me as well here. This field is absolutely full of dandelions. I mean chock-a-block. So I'm just going to go over to the edge of my grounds here, and we can see all of the dandelions and the neighbour's lovely horses at the same time out there enjoying everything. Isn't that beautiful? There we go. A field full of dandelions. And if I turn back round, oh, you can see my tidied up border, ready to grow out lots and lots and lots and lots more beautiful perennial plants for me in my inner garden area. So I really hope you enjoyed seeing the border closer up. Most of the dandelions gone, not all, some will come up again, but I can redo this. But now I've got the majority of it down so that this will be in control and my perennial plants will be able to come up and come forth. And I really hope you enjoyed seeing my salad and my roots to make my lovely decaffeinated coffee concoction kind of thing, and my flowers that I'm going to infuse to make myself a lovely cup of tea and so forth with. So this is absolutely perfect. So I really hope you enjoyed seeing the process of getting my border to the state it's in now. We're still in the early phases. It's still only the 11th of May 2024 here, and this is late spring still here where I live. So everything is only just starting to emerge, and we're still getting temperatures at night to around 1 degree Celsius. So it still gets quite cold at night, and during the day it stays around about 13, 14 degrees at the moment. So there's a long way to go before these plants really get the boost of life and puff up like I'm looking forward to. So I really hope you've enjoyed seeing this video with me today, and I hope you've been encouraged to look at your dandelions in your garden, those pesky weeds that are wonderful wild plants and an amazing crop, and that you will actually get out and start using the benefits of this plant already today because you are missing out if you're not doing something with this wonderful plant. So all I have to say now is thank you very much once again for watching this video. Please remember to like, subscribe and hit the bell so you know when my next video will be coming up, and I will see you again very, very soon. Goodbye.